see okay? And if I get a yes from a few of you, then we're going to go ahead and get rolling. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacie Battjes. I am with Fleet Feet Sports, and I just appreciate you taking some time this afternoon to join with me. We're going to talk today a little bit about some tips for getting active, and also as we talk about activity and we're approaching these summer months, we want to talk about how to be active and safe, as I said, surviving the heat. So I'm really excited to spend some time with you. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about equipment and things, just some success tips to help you as you're either increasing your activity level, or some of us may be re-engaging with activity after a little bit of a break from it, or just trying some different things. So with that, we're going to get started. I wanted to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. So Fleet Feet Sports is actually a nationwide brand. We have been here in the Winston-Salem community since 2006. We've moved 3 times in that time, so you kind of have to chase us to find us a little bit. But we are currently located over in Hanestown Village, near LA Fitness and PDQ. Fleet Feet is really all about helping people to find the right fit so that you can pursue your goals, whatever they may be, whether that is to get started walking, whether it's to run a marathon, to complete a triathlon, or whether your goal is simply to chase your kiddos around and do that without pain. Our goal is just to help you be in the best gear that you can be and in the right environment to make sure that you can achieve those goals. I joined the team at Fleet Feet, and everyone pause, this is the best slide in the presentation, is my personal opinion. I joined the team at Fleet Feet almost 10 years ago now. I've been coaching runners for more than 15 years now. I started coaching at the high school level, and then when I joined Fleet Feet, we were beginning our programs to help people we call it couch to 5K, transition from an inactive lifestyle to an active lifestyle. We currently offer programs for everyone from that beginner walker on up to someone who is trying to run a fast marathon. We do triathlon training as well. And so as we move through the next few minutes of information, and I'm sharing with you tips, a lot of the tips I'm going to share with you come from my experience working with people who are juggling life. They are trying to get active, to get well, and also probably have career commitments, family commitments, and a plethora of other things that they're just juggling. So I have stolen from them their success tips to bring to you guys today. I feature my son on this screen because that little guy, Lucas, is 3 years old now, and I've been working with Fleet Feet for a while, and I've been blessed with the opportunity to speak to a lot of groups about getting active and getting fit. And I think back in just a little bit of horror about my previous presentations as I encouraged people all these opportunities to go out and be active. Certainly for any of you who are parents, are any of you parents? Give me some yeses out there. For any of you who are parents, yes, I understand that you are juggling a lot. And even if you're not a parent, you're juggling so much in terms of career and family commitments, and I like that, yes, am proud, and volunteer commitments and things. And so I understand that squeezing in fitness is very challenging, and I can certainly relate to that with you. Much better now that I'm chasing around my adorable toddler than I could a few years ago. So as we move through these next few tips and minutes, I'm going to help you hopefully with some tips that can help you make the most of the little bit of time that you might have to dedicate to fitness. Before we move on and we start talking about gear and things, I did just want to remind you that there are some handouts that we've provided for you. I know Dr. Brown acknowledged those as well. Some of those just talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things that I'm going to touch on today. So those are a resource for you. And then as always, as you're a part of these meetings and presentations, remember that you're going to want to stay with us through the end, and then when we end this, you'll get a chance to go back and do a survey, which will allow you to get the credit for attending. So stick with us through the end, and I do hope that you're going to learn something with me along the way. So with that, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. kind of backing up a little bit to who we are as Fleet Feet Sports, we really do focus on helping to make sure that everybody is in the right gear and in the right environment to achieve their goals. And we call that, and I know it's corny, but we call that our Fitlosophy. And so what does that mean? I wanted to break down a little bit of the gear challenge because I think that's a big question mark for a lot of us. So many of our customers, day in and day out, feel like they cannot get regularly engaged in a fitness program because they have aches and pains that become debilitating factors in growing in their fitness. And really what happens is that many of them are just not in the right gear for them to safely and effectively work towards their goals. So there, you might have really great shoes to work out in, but if they're really great but not the right ones for you, then they're not going to support your body the way that your body needs, or they're not just going to move with your body the way that it needs to, and you're going to end up with things like shin splints, Achilles tendonitis, knee pain, low back pain. All of that can actually be attributed as one factor potentially to your gear. So our team at Fleet Feet is really passionate about helping people to make sure that they're in the right types of footwear. So when you come into our store, we take you through our fit process. And so we break out the Brannick device that you can see there on your screen, which you probably haven't seen since the 70s. And we actually do a couple of measurements on your feet. We're looking at how your foot changes when you move from an unweighted position to a weighted position. So very simply, how your foot functions when you are sitting down versus when you're standing up. And that helps us to know how much your arch changes as you move through your gait cycle. That's not something that changes much as you grow or as you age. It's really just more a function of genetics. There can be a few outside factors, but it's really just genetically how flexible or inflexible the tendons and ligaments around those joints in your feet might be. And it's also not an indicator of fitness. It just simply helps us to know how much support you need from the shoes as you move through your gait cycle. I know that when I was first, well, actually, I'd been running for a number of years, but I was just picking out whatever shoes I liked the look of, felt decent on my feet, and seemed to kind of fit my foot okay. I really didn't understand that there was a difference between a stability shoe and a neutral shoe. A stability shoe is designed so that on the medial side of that shoe, it has some extra support for you. So that for someone whose foot rolls in significantly as they walk, their foot is getting extra support. A neutral shoe, however, is for someone whose foot does not roll in significantly. And so being kind of young and just not really knowing the difference between the types of shoes, and no one had ever really explained that to me, and I hadn't really learned much about it, I would always buy stability shoes because I thought, well, we all probably need some stability in our life, so that makes sense. And just come to find out that is not the right type of shoe for how my foot functions. And so as a result, I was oftentimes experiencing knee pain that I just blamed on like a host of other factors, where in fact it was just because although I had great shoes, they were not the right type for my foot. So that's what our team does. We look at how your foot functions, weighted and unweighted. We watch you walk barefoot. And from there, we just start to narrow down the options for you so that you can be put into footwear that's really the best for how your body functions and what your goals might be. Just one other note before we move on to sports bras. A lot of folks that we work with also benefit from a rigid insert within their shoe. And that's something that we can help to fit you for, just to make sure it's right or isn't right, or I'm sorry, like the right type for your foot. It just helps to stabilize your foot in the shoe. So actually many people who have back pain do well when they're put into a rigid insert, to kind of help make sense of that, because again, that's one of those things that didn't make sense to me when I was first working at Fleet Feet. I always thought like something soft and cushioned would be a superior option. In fact, if I told you all that you had to stand on one foot and do that on your bed, that's a really soft and cushioned surface, but it really challenges your body to stay balanced on something so squishy. So instead, if I said you need to stand on one foot, but you can do it on this nice hardwood floor, that's a much easier option. So putting something rigid inside your shoe actually makes it easier to balance, which then stabilizes your lower legs, knees, hips, back, all the way on up through your shoulders. So just kind of clarifying that a little bit. A good question just came up about shoes, and it was, am I right in the fact that walking and running shoes are not the same fit that you need for weightlifting. And I love that question. My husband and I were just having this conversation the other day. There are certainly different options for different types of activities. We put most of our customers into running shoes at Fleet Feet. Running shoes are designed to take the greatest impact because when you run, you land with 3 to 4 times your body weight with each step. So the shoe designers are putting their best technology into running shoes. So we say whether you're walking on an elliptical, taking classes at the Y, being in a running shoe is your best option for something that's going to last a long time and is going to support you well. That being said, I know that a lot of folks who've gotten into like heavy weightlifting and into CrossFit are enjoying a shoe that has a little bit less of a heel to toe drop. And what I'm talking about there is simply the amount of difference in the heel cushioning versus the toe cushioning. So in a traditional running shoe, the heel is elevated a little bit, almost like you're wearing a very minor high heel. And a lot of people in weightlifting like to have a really natural feel for the ground and be a little bit lower to the ground. So to answer your question, people who are doing really heavy strength training and who are doing things like CrossFit have found that their desires are just slightly different. We actually carry some shoes that our CrossFit community really like. They're just a little bit more minimal even than a running shoe. But for folks who are doing kind of more traditional strength training, not something where they're doing really, really heavy weights and not something that's more CrossFit type in movements, they tend to do well in a running shoe. And we feel like a running shoe allows them to succeed in both strength training as well as running, walking, chasing kiddos around, playing at the playground, just a real variety of activities. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to move on. I know that we're getting some other questions asked. So that was great feedback. We just see that someone who was wearing running shoes to lift made it feel like they were leaning forward. So for weightlifting, they switched shoes. And that was actually what my husband and I were talking about. He was doing some heavy weighted squats and felt like in his traditional running shoes, he was leaning forward. If you were going to use your running shoes for weightlifting and you just wanted to invest in one pair of shoes that you could do a variety of things in, I would mention that to whoever is helping you, that you want to use the shoes for a variety of activities, explaining to them what you like to do. I actually run in a shoe that has a very minimal heel to toe drop. So for me personally, my shoe doesn't have me leaning forward much. Other models that we sell do have you leaning forward a little bit more. So that's just something I would take into consideration. And you may decide that you like 2 different pairs, but if you're just trying to get one pair, just alert the person who's helping you the different types of activities that you'll be using the shoes for so that they can find you the best pair for that number of activities. I know that if there's any fellas in the room, I'm going to embarrass you for just a second because we're going to touch on sports bras quickly. And ladies, as I go through this, there is a handout available that talks to you a little bit more in depth about sports bras, but it is really your second most important piece of equipment. A lot of people don't realize what a good sports bra, how a good sports bra fits, and it does fit differently than your day-to-day bra, but you want to make sure that you're in really great support. We actually see a lot of customers who have limited what types of activities they're pursuing because they just had so much movement, they were uncomfortable, and when they got the right sports bra, they were finally able to pursue some of the things that they were really wanting to try out. So I just want to make you aware that there are great options for sports bras that completely run the size gamut. And so if you felt like, gosh, my size just isn't available, I would just challenge you to pursue some of the options out there. And our team can help to fit you in the right type of sports bra, doing your measurements, making sure that the support is coming from the band and not from the straps. We always tell customers also that a sports bra shouldn't celebrate a birthday. The Lycra in them and the spandex will actually burn up over time just with regular use and cleaning. And so when the elasticity wears out, it's difficult. It just can't support you in the same way. So our bodies change and the sports bras wear out. So we encourage you every year to get remeasured and to just make sure that you're still in the right style for you and getting something new. Finally, on sports bras, and then we'll move on so that the fellas can stop blushing. It is important that as you're caring for them, you make sure not to toss them in the dryer. I know it's really tempting when you're doing loads of laundry to just get it all done quickly, but that's going to burn up the elasticity a little bit faster. And they're not an inexpensive investment, I know, so just making them last a little bit longer, certainly to your advantage. So don't toss them in the dryer, take good care of them, and get remeasured each year. I know that was a lot of gear talk. I sometimes have a lot of questions on gear, and so I'll just invite you that if you had any more questions about shoes, anything else related to gear, anyone who's been in our store knows that we also have a lot of options with apparel and compression and things like that. I'm happy to go further down that path if you'd like. So please feel free to chime in with those as we're going. We're not leaving that topic entirely. But I wanted to move on a little bit and telling you a little bit about just some tips for starting in fitness, some tips for surviving the heat, and then kind of finishing with an action plan. As I said earlier, my job at Fleet Feet is I'm the director of training programs, and so I work with our participants in everything from beginner 5K walking on up to marathon and triathlon training. What you see on your screen right now is kind of just a quick summary of a lot of the programs that we offer. We have a few additional ones beyond that. And as we're going forward, I'm just going to share with you some of the tips that our participants have found helping them to succeed. Like any program, we see a lot of people who succeed and then a lot of people who have things coming up along the way that challenge their success in the programs. And so I'm just going to steal all the success tips from them, and that's how we're going to move on. So we're going to talk again about how to start fitness, surviving the heat, and then finishing with the action plan. But feel free to come back to gear if you'd like. I'm always happy to geek out on shoes as people enjoy. So when we talk about how to start a fitness program, I know that all of you are successful in your life in a lot of ways. And so as we move through these 7 tips, they're probably not rocket science to you, and they're probably not new to you. And we're simply going to talk about how they apply to fitness specifically, especially if maybe you're coming back to fitness after a long time break from it, or maybe you're just getting started for the first time. I also want to acknowledge that not everybody loves running and walking, and while we're a running, walking, triathlon specialty store, we love that there's so many awesome fitness options in this community. And so while a lot of my examples might come from our runners, that's just because that's who I work with. And I would encourage you to find the activity that you personally enjoy. My mother-in-law recently got started in fitness, and I think she really wanted to be a runner because I think she thought that was something that maybe we could share together, but she hated like every moment of it, and it was difficult for her to stick with something she wasn't enjoying along the way. And what she found instead was she really loves taking classes. She loves that. She loves to be indoors. She prefers that over being outside. She just loves that group atmosphere, and she really liked being in classes of all women. So just find what works for you and stick with that. Don't force something that's completely unnatural. That's not to say that fitness is going to be 100% pain-free, because I know that we all discover little aches and pains as we're getting stronger. But I do think it's important to find something that mentally and emotionally you find a little bit of joy in, so that you can stick with it on the days when you're feeling a little bit weary and less likely to continue. So with that, our 7 steps in starting any fitness program is to start with set a goal. So for our folks, we train for 8 weeks or 12 weeks with the goal of doing a race at the end of our training program. The race is optional. Not everybody does it, but for us, it kind of helps us to set some guidelines. So if we know that we need to be 5K ready in 8 weeks, then that can help us to kind of work backwards on a calendar to figure out where we are now and how are we going to progress in increasing our volume and intensity to get to that point. I really think that that goal also helps you to be accountable. So a lot of our participants have found that if they share their goal publicly, that it helps them to stick with it a little bit more, because people are going to ask them, how did that go? Some people are just really financially motivated, and so if they pay to do a race, they're going to do that. So if that speaks to you, certainly use that to your advantage. I think it's important also, as you're setting your goal, to ask yourself, why am I doing this? For most of us, we're not training for a 5K or going to the gym 3 times a week just to do something on one single day. And instead, we're doing this for a healthier life, or we want to be well enough to chase our grandchildren, whatever it might be. I know for years I've enjoyed running, but certainly now when I'm working out, I'm thinking often of the fact that I want to be able to run a 5K with my now 3-year-old when he's 15 and 16, and I want us to be able to share that together. Or if I'm doing strength work, I oftentimes think to myself, I've got to do regular strength work because I want to be able to lift my 3-year-old up and snuggle him for as long as he'll tolerate me doing that. So think, why am I doing this? And I would actually write that down and maybe post it somewhere that you regularly see. It might be on a bathroom mirror or on the dashboard of your car. Because there are certainly days in fitness that just aren't fun, that you don't really want to stick with it. Maybe you're weary and have a lot of other time commitments that are challenging you in pursuing that goal. And being reminded of why you're doing it is going to be really important. So step 1 is to set a goal, and step 2 is to consult experts. This can be very humbling, and I know with the internet we can all feel like we're experts, but I would work with someone who understands you. If you want to get involved in strength training and you go to a personal trainer and they're setting expectations that you work out for multiple hours every day of the week, and they haven't taken the time to understand how unrealistic that might be for you based on your other, the rest of your schedule, that's not going to be a great fit. So consult experts who will take the time to understand who you are, where you are currently in your fitness, and where you want to go with it. And they should also be asking, why are you doing this? I know that some folks will start with us in our 5K training because they want to actually eventually do a triathlon. So they actually want to do a swim, bike, run race. And so they're really just starting with us and running because that's their first step into a much larger goal. And so we can kind of tailor their programs to accommodate those needs. So step 1, set a goal. Step 2 is consult experts. And step 3 is to determine a plan and give yourself a day-by-day plan. This is, I know there's a few tips on that screen. I always think it's important to allow yourself some extra time in your plan. Acknowledge that life happens. So a lot of us, when we're getting started in fitness, we want to be all in. And so we're going to plan on regular activity, 3 or 5 or 6 days a week, whatever it might be. And we don't want anything to deter us from that goal. But in fact, it's just normal that someone gets a cold in your household, or one day you have to stay at work late, or for a lot of you, it might be a lot of days you're staying at work late. So it's important as you're developing your plan to kind of build in some accommodation for life and acknowledge that life does happen, so that if it takes you away from your strict plan, it doesn't take you away from your end goal. On this determine a plan slide, I wanted to share a tip from one of our longtime participants who actually works with us now as a volunteer mentor to new participants. She is someone like me who just loves to write things out. I love to do lists. I love a plan that's written in Excel, and I love to just put the little check mark in the boxes on the days that I've achieved my goal or done what's my to-do list for the day. So she will write out her plan, her fitness plan, and like with our training programs, we provide that, but she kind of tailors it also to her needs. And then she posts it on her refrigerator where she sees it regularly to remind her of what she needs to do. Then she takes it a few steps further. She carves out in her day time to achieve what's on her plan, and she schedules it the same way she would like a doctor's appointment or an important meeting at work, so that she doesn't overschedule her day, making her unable to complete what's written on her plan. And then finally, and here is the tip that I just adore, she puts like a little, I don't know what she does, a star or a check mark on every day that she achieves what she was supposed to do on her plan. And I love that feeling because I just love kind of crossing things out. But where she makes that tool more powerful is that she actually forces herself on the days that she doesn't achieve what was written on the plan to write down why she didn't achieve that. And I think that's such a powerful tool. It certainly makes sense that she may not be able to go out and walk 3 miles on a day when she was under the weather with the flu or something. And so when you write that down, that's okay. That's just kind of acknowledging that life happens. But as she always shares, it's very humbling when you have to write down, nope, I binge watched Orange is the New Black, or whatever show it is you might binge watch on Netflix, instead of going out for my 3-mile walk. And putting it in writing is just a really awesome way to be accountable for yourself. or accountable to yourself. So I hope that someone out there might take that tip and utilize it. So kind of checking off what the days that you do, and then writing in the days that you don't, why you didn't. Finally, before we move on beyond determining a plan, on here it says build by 10% and build in rest days. It's really important to acknowledge that our bodies take time to acclimate to activity. So as we get stronger by breaking down and rebuilding. So I think a lot of us understand that when it comes to muscular strength, you break down muscle and it rebuilds, and you break it down and it rebuilds. That's why your rest days are actually critical to your training. With that, our cardiovascular system also gets stronger, and then our skeletal system also needs time to adapt. So our bones actually operate in a similar manner in that they break down and rebuild. It's why they say like weight-bearing activity is fantastic for prevention of osteoporosis. But because of that, it's important to not increase by too much at any one point in time, so that you allow your body time to rebuild without overdoing it early on. Again, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and toss them out there as we're going. But I wanted to move on just a little bit. And our fourth step in how to start a fitness program is to take baby steps. And we were just kind of touching on that, acknowledging that increasing by 10% is kind of what they say as trainers is the golden rule. Some people can increase a little bit faster than that, and other folks feel like they need to allow themselves more sort of plateau weeks to allow their bodies time to acclimate. I also think it's important to just acknowledge that this is a big shift in your life if you've been inactive and you're starting brand new to fitness. And so you might start with just 2 days a week as your beginning goal, or your beginning steps, even if down the road you're hoping to be active 5 or 6 days a week. So allow yourself the opportunity to take baby steps, and writing that out in your plan is a really helpful way to work towards that. I'm going to move on to the next slide. I know we've got some questions coming in soon, and we'll pause once we see those. But I think it's also helpful to recruit folks to support you in your fitness journey. That's one of the reasons people enjoy the training programs that we offer, is because you are working out in a community of similar people. We're going to pause because the question came up, is it better to separate out cardio days from strengthening days when working out? I love that question. And the answer is there's not one solid answer. It depends on kind of what your overall goals might be. For some of our folks who are runners and their goal is to finish a race in a certain amount of time, I actually have them stack their strength workouts on their cardio days, so that they have some days that are really tough and some days that are easier for recovery. We're always mindful with our runners to make sure that their strength workouts support their running, but their running workouts are really the basis of them achieving their goals. And so we want to make sure that their strength workout doesn't take away from their progression as a runner. So kind of to explain that a little bit better, like we don't want someone to go out and do such a hard strength workout on Monday that they're not ready for a tough track workout on Tuesday. If you're not really concerned about a specific time in a race, and you're not really even like worried about running or walking, you're just doing a variety of things, then yes, I like the idea of separating those out. So it's smart with strength work to allow your body a day in between. So if you weightlift or strength train on one day, to allow yourself a day away from strength training before you get back to strength training the following day. And so that day in between is the perfect day to allow yourself a chance to do a little bit longer cardio session, certainly. Hopefully that answers your question. And then, absolutely. And then the fifth point, just in starting a fitness program, is recruiting. And there's a lot of points on here. I think it's great and it's powerful to have people who know what you're working towards. Some people who maybe are going to do it alongside of you. That's a fantastic way to be engaged in fitness. I know personally, I love to run with friends, and it's really hard to bail on someone who's going to get up to run with you at 5:30 in the morning. So having friends that are going to join you for those workouts makes it a lot easier to stick with it. I can't do that every day of the week. As you know, I have a toddler. I also have a husband who's in law enforcement, and so our schedules are constantly just changing and shifting. And so it's oftentimes the case that I have to work out at home or utilize our treadmill at home or something, and can't meet up with folks. But if I know that one day a week I'm going to meet up with friends, it makes me want to be accountable in my workouts throughout the week, so that I can be best prepped to be able to keep up with them when I do get a chance to meet up with them. I also wanted to point out, just think about ignoring the people who stand in your way. This oftentimes happens when you decide to make a change in your life, whatever that change might be. But if, let's say it is that you want to get started in fitness, there's always going to be people who want to kind of warn you away from that with some story about how it didn't work for them. That's typically their own fears coming out. It's really not necessarily a reflection on you. So I know like the common one is someone will say, I want to get started in running, and everybody in their cubicles around them says, no, running's bad for your knees, don't do it. That's oftentimes just someone's bad experience, or they probably weren't fit for shoes, or it may just be that they themselves aren't ready to change, so they're having a hard time seeing other people who are ready to change. So just be prepared as you share your fitness goals with people to ignore some of the people. Sometimes we can use that as fuel for a fire as well. So with step 5 being in starting your fitness program, recruiting, step 6 is to allow yourself a chance to reevaluate your goal and plan. And this kind of just gets back to acknowledging that life happens. I know that personally, I love to be like that all or nothing person. I feel like I'm all in or I'm all out of something at times, and it's challenging for me to find just like that nice balance where I can be forgiving of myself when things don't go as I planned. But it's important for us in knowing that fitness isn't just a one-time goal or an 8-week goal. It is a lifelong goal, and it's a big part of our wellness journey to alter our plans as we go and to be okay with that. If today you said in 8 weeks I want to finish a 5K and you get into it and that just isn't right for your body or your mindset, you're not enjoying it, then it is okay to reevaluate. It may be that you said in 8 weeks I want to run a 5K and you get started in your training and it becomes clear that a better goal would be to walk a 5K, or simply like go out and walk a 5K, and that would be an awesome accomplishment, and you can kind of move forward from there. But I do think it's really smart to allow yourself a chance as you're moving into fitness to reevaluate as you go, so that you can stick with doing something even if it's not what you'd initially set out to do. And then kind of our final tip is to allow yourself a chance to celebrate. And this is oftentimes what my participants in our training programs are guilty of. They want to celebrate everyone else but themselves. And so they may go out and finish a race, and we'll be there at the finish line high-fiving them and congratulating them. And they're quick to say, oh, but I walked more than I planned, or I didn't go as quickly as I thought I would, or I didn't finish up front. And I just think it's so silly. I think it's really important that we celebrate our successes and kind of find ways that make sense for you to celebrate your success. And it might mean you stick with your fitness goal for 6 straight weeks, and at that point you go out and you invest in, I mean, it could be as simple as new awesome socks for you to work out in, and every day you put those socks on, you're going to be reminded, all right, I stuck with this for 6 weeks, I can do it another 6 weeks. So it might be like a little gift to yourself. It might be a little service to yourself, like maybe you go out and reward yourself with a massage to kind of care for the body that you've been pushing in fitness. But I do think celebrating is just a really important aspect to encouraging ourselves to keep going. So I know that all of you are probably the first person to celebrate a kiddo or coworker's success, so allow yourself a chance to celebrate your own success along this journey as well. That really took us through our 7 steps in starting a fitness program, and I'm happy to stick on this a little bit longer. But I also wanted, as we approach the summer months, to share with you some tips for staying active in the summer heat, because I know for a lot of our folks, it is a really challenging time. I just need to scroll up. I see that we got a question. Oh, I love it. Someone just asked, we have a kickoff meeting tonight for our No Boundaries class. Can we show up? Do we need to bring anything? It is exactly right that tonight we are beginning, we're just kicking off, it's an info session actually, at 6 o'clock at Fleet Feet, and we'll be beginning our summer No Boundaries program. So that is a 5K training program that's open to runners or walkers, and you don't need to bring anything with you. Tonight's all info session. If you bring anything with you, just make it a friend. But we are really excited about this program. They're going to be practicing at 8 a.m. on Saturdays, building up to 5K distance. So, so certainly feel free to join us tonight if you want to hear more. That'll be at 6 o'clock at Fleet Feet. So with that, and you don't need to be signed up or anything at this point. For a lot of folks, they just come tonight to hear more and see if it's something that they're truly interested in doing. So, so with that being said, I do want to talk about just a few more success tips in fitness, and then we'll get into HIIT. I wanted to touch on how something is better than nothing, and we talked about this a little bit as we were going, in that and just sticking with a plan, even if it's not your original plan. I think oftentimes we want to go out, like I know for myself, sometimes I'll say, if I'm going to go to the gym, I want to be there for an hour, and I want to do a little bit of cardio, a little bit of strength work, I want to work on my flexibility, and there are just a lot of days that hour isn't available. And so kind of accepting the mindset that doing something consistently is better than saving it to do like a 1 hour session a couple of times a week. So if you're someone who's just getting started, it might mean that today all you have time to do is to go out and walk for 10 minutes. Go out and do it. Because the more consistent that you can be in regularly visiting fitness, the more likely it's going to become something that you can stick with in life. I also think it's great to make it a family or friends event. So maybe you have a friend that you like to meet for coffee, and instead now you meet for a walk, and then you could grab coffee afterwards. Or for me, like it might mean that maybe I really thought I should go for a run, but what makes sense, because I want to spend time with my family, is that we go for a walk as a family and then play at the playground together. And that's still a great way to be active and be moving, even if it might be a little bit different than what I was initially thinking. We touched on accountability earlier. I did want to kind of revisit the idea that using social media, so maybe you post your goals out to the Facebook world, can be powerful. Some people really like that because it helps them to be accountable. Other people just like that face-to-face accountability. So joining a group like our No Boundaries program, or taking classes at a gym like my mother-in-law enjoys, those are really wonderful ways to be accountable to other folks. Kind of just helps you to stick with it. And then when you're thinking about your schedule and how to fit in fitness, knowing that you probably have a very rich and full life already, which is kind of just a nice way of saying very busy life, I think it's smart to just be thoughtful in how you're going to tackle that beast. Are you an early bird, or does being a night owl make more sense? I always use my husband as our example here because I'm an early riser. I don't love an early alarm clock, but fueled by coffee, I can handle it. And so I am one to get up early in the morning and kind of take that time for myself. I love to get in a workout in the morning and to have had that time where I feel like I'm doing something for me before the rest of my day kind of starts to unravel, and I start to do a lot for other people as we go. So I love that early bird schedule, and it's something I've found that I'm able to stick with. My husband, not so much. He's very much a night owl, and so he just doesn't even go to bed early enough with his work schedule and the other things he enjoys to be a regular early bird with fitness. So he's much more likely to stick with something if he does it at night. For me, once I put Lucas down to bed, I know that like I just don't have the energy or the mindset to go and engage in fitness things. But Dan does, and so he totally does that, and it works for him. So so just think about what works well in your schedule. I put that note on here about setting yourself up for success because some of our mentors actually shared some really good tips for both morning early birds and for night owls. And so for your early birds out there, or you might be turning yourself into an early bird, a few tips for you are things that I also like to do. I like to have my fitness stuff ready the night before. So that just means usually my clothes and my shoes are kind of laid out and ready the night before. This is also a key to a successful marriage in my household because my husband does not want me to turn the lights on and to rummage around in the closet in my early bird time when he is in the midst of his sleep. So that works out well for me. So kind of laying out my stuff the night before. If maybe you're going to use some equipment or do some strength work at home, that might mean kind of having that all ready to go. While I am an early bird, it is not like I wake up with clear thinking, and so that just makes it easier for me to slide into my workout if everything's ready for me to just move towards. For those of you who might be more night owls, I loved this tip. This was from one of our mentors. She said that she takes her gym bag with her to work, and that she puts on her fitness gear or clothes before she leaves work. And that might not mean that she's working out from work. And it may actually mean that she's going home and walking the dogs when she gets home. But because she already has her fitness clothes on, she's more likely to stick with it. And that totally makes sense. I know personally when I get home, if I'm not in my fitness mode already, it's really tempting to just kind of want to relax and settle in for the evening. But if you've already taken the first steps towards moving closer to your workout time, then you're more likely to stick with it. I know a lot of folks kind of carry that over, and they say that they go straight to the gym from work, so they don't go home, they go straight to the gym, and that can work out well. Back to the early bird tip, a few of my friends who they rent lockers at their gym, and they keep all of their best beauty products in those lockers. So it's a very interesting incentive that they want to go to the gym to work out in the morning, because that's where they want to get ready for their day, because that's where all their best stuff is. And I thought that was kind of a clever idea too. So those are just some little ways to kind of set yourself up for success in terms of scheduling your workout. Now getting into the heat, we're just going to talk a little bit about some things that maybe can be something that you apply in these next few months as we are in the unofficial start of summer, coming off of Memorial Day weekend. The first one is be really mindful of the time of day that you're working out. Midday can be very, very challenging. I know that while I am regularly an early bird, I love the longer daylight hours because I feel like I'm not so nutty to be outside being active sometimes at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, because it's already daylight these days. So kind of take advantage of that and enjoy that. Kind of the same goes in reverse on those nicer long evening hours too. I'd also be thoughtful if you're going to be working out outside about the routes that you're going to utilize. So maybe if you're going out for a walk or you're doing some run walking or running, then thinking about just more shaded areas. And then kind of piggybacking on that, I actually really love to work out outside. It's my preference to get outside for a walk or a run. But it is really valuable to think, like, don't hate we call it the treadmill or the treadmill. So, and maybe running and walking isn't your goal, but for our runners and walkers, we tell them this time of year, you may find that if your only time of day to be active and exercising is midday, you may actually be best off if you go ahead and take it indoors. You can totally make a treadmill workout as effective or even more effective than working out outside. So if you're new to fitness and you're thinking, I don't know how to handle this heat, it seems really unacceptable in my body to be doing something in 90 degrees and high humidity, then go ahead and make the investment to join an indoor gym so that you just kind of take away that excuse. It will be certainly something that you're going to be more likely to stick with if it's a little bit more comfortable getting started. I also want to talk about kind of shifting your expectations. There's a lot of kind of science about why our bodies don't perform as well in the heat as they do in our cooler months. The chart that you see there is really specific to running, and it's just showing how someone who runs an 8-minute mile, how they're at the same effort, how their time would alter based on temperature outside. In short, this is really just saying that when it's extremely warm and you're working out, you will need to dial back your effort a little bit to feel successful and to not risk overdoing it. So maybe you've been out walking and you've enjoyed our kind of mild entrance into the spring, and you've been able to walk 2 miles every day and be real comfortable doing that. And suddenly, as we're getting into some of these warmer days, you're finding 2 miles is really kind of zapping your energy. It may be time to adjust and allow yourself 1.5 miles or a mile until your body acclimates to the heat. Your body does funny things in the heat, and this gets really like nerdy and sciencey, but basically you go out to work out and your body's priority is to cool yourself so that you can stay functioning. And so your blood's priority is to go into cooling mode. And so that oftentimes means there's less blood available to supply your muscles the way that we're accustomed to in our cooler months. Then as we continue to stay active in the heat, our body says, this person's going to keep doing this to me all summer. How do I adjust? And so your body actually, with proper hydration and nutrition, your blood volume will increase so that your body can effectively cool itself and support your muscles to achieve your goals. So over the course of the summer months, your blood volume will actually increase a little bit. So regular, consistent effort can help you in that. proper hydration and nutrition will as well. But I really just wanted to geek out on that for a second, simply to say, be patient with yourself as we get into these warmer months, because your body will adapt. It's not time to throw in the towel, and you're not alone in feeling a little bit more weary. Even our most seasoned runners experience the same thing. I'm from Michigan, so 10 years ago when we moved here, I had a hard reality check when we are like. So it took me being patient with myself to understand, okay, we're going to get through this. It all balances out after my body acclimates. Fourth tip in surviving the summer heat is be really mindful of protecting your skin and your eyes as you're out being active. I think sometimes we're so focused on like combating the aches and pains of being active that we can forget just how exposed we are out there. So be really mindful of using sunscreen, how you dress, and a lot of our folks like to wear like a visor or a hat just to kind of provide them with some shade to protect their skin, and also so they don't feel so squinty as they're going. And then fifth and finally, just some tips on being comfortable. How you dress can make all the difference in the heat. And so if you're someone who's tried to be active in the heat and you found maybe you were experiencing some chafing or you were overheating, then there are great garments out there now, and there are so many more now than there were like 10 or 15 years ago that can help you feel comfortable and stay active regardless of the temperature. And that kind of applies to both the heat of the summer and the coolness of the winter. So we have a lot of folks who like to wear things that are pretty fitted, because then it doesn't move as you're moving, and so it's less likely to rub or create some chafing. You really want to think about all of your apparel. This means everything from your underwear to your sports bra to your socks to your pants or shorts to your top as being wicking. So they should be made of materials that are going to pull moisture away from your body, and that just helps your body to cool itself the way we're designed to. I know this is kind of probably something a lot of you already know a little bit about, but I do want to encourage you that if you've just never really found what feels right to you as you're being active, like get out and look again. And our team does a good job of kind of putting people in the right apparel so that they can work towards their goals. It's just making sure that you feel comfortable being active is a critical component of your success, especially in extreme conditions, whether that be heat or cold. So we've talked a lot about how to start a fitness program. We've talked about tips for the heat, a few other just fitness tips. And I kind of wanted to wrap up and allow you a chance to ask questions, but I wanted to just touch on kind of what does this all mean and what does an action plan look like. Hopefully, as you've heard some tips, you've thought a little bit about, like, what do I want to do? Is it I want to join a gym, or I want to start taking some classes, or I like that idea of walking, and I just want to make it a more regular component of my day-to-day. So what does your action plan look like? And so today I just wanted to invite you and also to kind of challenge you to think, like, what can you do today to take action on your goals? And I put this up here on the slide that said, like, if a doctor told you that doing something is going to help lengthen your life, doesn't it feel silly for us to say, like, well, let's wait until January 1st? Or I know sometimes we'll say, well, I know that I would live longer if I could do that, but that doesn't, I think I'm going to wait to do that. I think I'm going to wait until the start of a week because that makes more sense. Doesn't it feel better to just say, yep, if that's going to make a difference in my life, I'm going to start now. And so with that, if you just think small, think, what could I do today to move me towards that goal? And I know your day might be really booked up already, but maybe it just means I can get outside and I can move for 10 minutes. Or I can go to the park, and instead of sitting on the bench when my kiddo is playing, I can walk around the whole time that he or she is on that play set. Or it might mean that when I get home tonight, I'm just going to do a few crunches and squats. I'm just going to stand up and sit down out of my chair 10 times. Or I'm going to do that 10 times right now, and I'm going to do it 10 times again tonight. It's okay if it's small right now. Small builds into big, and the best things usually do start small and become greater as we go. So as you're thinking about what can I do today, I would say, what are you going to do and why are you going to do it? And selfishly, I think this is my second best slide in the whole presentation because that's my little fella and my doggy. But that's my why. That's why I do what I do in terms of fitness. And so I would encourage you to write down on a note card or something, kind of going back to that, writing down your why, I would also write down your what. What is the thing that you can do today, that you can do tomorrow, to start moving towards your goals? And why are you going to do it? And certainly on the days, again, when it's tough, that why makes all the difference. So having that visual reminder of why it is you do what you do is going to inspire you on the days that we're weary. I feel like we flew through a whole lot of information this afternoon, and I appreciate some of the questions along the way. I wanted to pause for just a second and invite anyone who might have some questions to toss those out here before we end the meeting. And remember that we'll end the meeting, and then that will allow you a chance to go ahead and complete the survey so that you'll be able to get the credit that you needed. But I did really appreciate your time, appreciate the questions that you had. I wanted to invite you that if some of the programs I mentioned were interesting to you, or truly if you have any questions related to health, wellness, or gear, I'm always happy to answer those. I'm the coach at Fleet Feet, and it's easy to find my email address on our website, which is up on the screen right now. If you already have a question, you are welcome to send that to coach@fleetfeetws.com. Again, that's just coach@fleetfeetws.com. It's fleetfeetwinstonsalem.com. So, again, I really appreciate you guys, and I wish you all of the best wherever your fitness journey may take you. I'm going to go ahead and end our meeting and our time together this afternoon, and wish you all the best.